If you have a question for Dr. Donna, please do leave it on my page and I will be happy to answer the question for you. Welcome to another episode of Talking with Dr. Donna. I am your host, your doctor, Dr. Donna White Carey. Thank you so much for joining in. Tonight we're going to do some updates. We're going to talk about coronavirus. But before we do that, there's a couple of things that we have to do. Number one is I want to encourage you that if you like my channel, if you watch my channel, or if this is your first time watching my channel, I am encouraging you to go ahead and subscribe if you are not already a subscriber, and to then hit that little bell icon right next to the subscribe button, and that way every time I go live you will be notified. I appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. It helps to make sure that I can see that you like it, that you're watching, that you're learning something every time you tune in. So thank you in advance for being a subscriber and letting yourself know when I go live. Also, I want to talk to you about what's coming up this weekend. This weekend is a big weekend for all of us mothers out there. This is Mother's Day weekend. Woo! I'm clapping it up for all of you mothers out there who are holding it down. I know this has been a tough year. You have been through working from home, homeschooling your children, having them in your house, eating all day long. The groceries you thought were going to last for a full week, only lasting for 2 days. I'm with you, moms. I'm with you. And I want to say thank you for being the teacher, for being the nurturer, for being the doctor and the nurse when they're scraped their little knees or hurt themselves. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So happy Mother's Day in advance to all of you mothers out there. And of course, I could not have Mother's Day without thanking my mother, Donna Mae Scott White. Thank you, Mom. This is usually, it's always been, since I can remember, a big weekend for us because my mother's birthday is usually a couple of days before Mother's Day. But since her passing, it's kind of like a double hit in the gut. So this weekend, though, I'm going to make sure that I try to celebrate my mother's birthday, which is on May 8th, and then Mother's Day, which is on May 9th. My mom was a fantastic mother, and I want to just give her a couple of moments of praise because it is because of her that I am who I am today, because she never put me in a box, that she never told us that we couldn't do anything. She always said, no matter what you put your mind to, you can do and you can achieve. Never let anybody tell you no, including yourself. So you got to start with your mind. So thank you, Mom, for giving me the ability to say, yes, I can in every situation that came my way. So thank you. As we move into talking with Dr. Donna, you know my goal is to build generational health. What does that mean? Generational health means that we're going to pay attention to our emotional and mental health. We're going to pay attention to our spiritual health, and we're going to pay attention to our physical health, and we're going to pay attention to our environmental health. If we look at all those 4 pillars, if we pay attention generation after generation, we can start passing on good health to our children and our children's children, instead of passing on high rates of heart disease, high rates of cancer, high rates of diabetes, high rates of obesity. Let's end that. Let's stop that. Let's give generations of of passing down health and wellness to our children. We want to end premature deaths in our community. Amen? Amen. And I get a what? Hey, yes, Dr. Donna, just let me know. Give me some likes, some love, something. Let me know that you are with me in this quest of building a network of generational health. So tonight we're going to do some updates on coronavirus because, as you know, that's really what we are in the midst of talking about right now with this pandemic. And I want to share with you some data as to where we are right now with our rates of coronavirus, with our rates of where we are in terms of being vaccinated, where we are in terms of our cases and our case rates. And I know it's on the tip of your tongue and on the front of your mind. What are we going to do about these vaccines? Are we going to vaccinate our babies from 12 and up? Are we going to go back to using Johnson & Johnson vaccine, or are we going to stick with the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines? Is it okay to let my kid start summer camp this summer or participate in summer sports? We're going to talk about those things today. If you have any questions, like usual, you can go ahead and leave it in the comment section and let me know if you have any questions. I'm going to take a minute first, though. I know that we're having a little bit of issues on my YouTube page, my Facebook page. So I am going to see if I can share what we're talking about here on my YouTube page with on my Facebook page. Can I figure that out while we're live? Nope. Dr. Donna was trying to figure it out, but she cannot. So we're just going to move forward and we'll share it a little bit later. But I see you on here. Hello. Oh, thanks, Trin. Wishing me a happy almost Mother's Day. I hope you have other things in store besides just a wish. All right. Let's talk about coronavirus, where we are. So if you've been watching the news at all today, you know across the world, across the country, I should say, sorry, not across the world, but across the country, we're having our lowest rates of coronavirus than we've had in the last 7 months. That's great news. That means we're really maybe starting to make a dent in this effect of this pandemic. But it doesn't mean that it's over. It doesn't mean that we're out of the woodwork. It doesn't mean that you need to stop wearing a mask, particularly if you are not vaccinated. Doesn't mean that we can start socializing and gathering in big gatherings. Again, not quite there yet. Also doesn't mean that we need to sort of stop with the social distancing or great hand washing. All of those things need to continue. But what it does mean is that we're getting there, and that's good news. That's news we should be clapping about and being thankful for, because we are moving in the right direction. I think it's helpful that it's been warm, and so because of the summer, that we've been able to be outdoors a lot more. This is a virus that likes to be inside, likes to be close to people. So when we're outdoors, it helps to prevent the virus from being able to jump from person to person. But let's see where we are in our total cases. So in Alameda County right now, we have over 83,000 cases, and we have over 1,494 people who have died in Alameda County. And I know that for some people that doesn't feel like a lot, but imagine if you are one of those who lost a loved one of those 1,494 families who have lost a loved one. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. So we're on the cases and deaths slide, 11. So if we look at that, we can see, if you can kind of see down, kind of take a look. I'm going to see if we can kind of focus in. I want you to pay attention to two things on this slide. Number one, the thing that we've been talking about and saying from the very beginning of this pandemic, which is who has the highest positivity rate, who is actually positive from coronavirus. And the 18 to 30-year-olds, you're leading the pack still. in the number of cases. So the 18 to 30-year-olds have the highest number of cases, all right? When we pay attention to that, why that's important is because those people who are positive are the people, obviously, who are able to spread the virus. And in that 18 to 30-year-old age group, we see that if you talk to people about vaccination, that's that age group who also not quite interested in getting the vaccine. But before we get to that slide, so we have cases, right? Let's look at the next slide. We have cases by ethnicity. Now, this is slide 12. So we have large numbers of Latin, right? We know a lot of cases in our county are in the Latinx population and the African American population. And if you compare that, you'll see that there are still almost twice as many cases in the Latinx and Black community than the white community. So we still have high cases, and we are moving on and looking at where we are in terms of our rates of hospitalization and rates of death. We know that, remember from that first slide, we have the number of cases, highest number of cases were in that 18 to 30-year-old age group, right? But the people who has the highest rate of deaths is in the 81 plus age group. Now, if you think about it, those 81 plus year olds, they're probably not the ones outdoors hanging out doing things, right? They're the ones that are probably more likely to be at home. And so when you have 18 to 30-year-old age group that has the highest cases, and then you go to the deaths in the 81 plus year olds, that kind of says that maybe that's 18 to 30-year-olds are coming in and exposing those 81 plus year olds to the coronavirus. And then we want to talk about, well, what does it look like by race, right? We know deaths by age, but let's look at deaths by race. Again, we see very similar to what we saw with cases. Again, African American and Latinx population has the highest rates of death, almost twice as much as whites. So that means that if you think about, we have the highest cases and we have the highest rates of death, that we should then have the highest rates of vaccines, right? Okay, so let's go back to slide 10 and look at our rates of vaccination. So are our rates of vaccination higher? No, they are not. They are not. They are not. Now, there are a number of things that we had to help to combat coronavirus, right? Wearing a mask, social distancing, washing hands, and then the other thing that came up is vaccines. So despite what you may think about the vaccine has been given to millions of people, and we've had very few and limited side effects. But when we look at who is being vaccinated, then we know that the people who are being vaccinated are predominantly white and Asian. Well, that's a flip to what we're seeing for who has the highest number of cases and who's dying. What I would really love to see is the rate of vaccinations in the African American and Latinx populations be higher than white and Asian, just like it is in terms of cases and deaths. All right, so that's what I want to see. That's not what we're seeing yet, but that's what we're striving for. But we understand that so many people have questions about the vaccine still, and I get it. And I think that we should be asking questions, but I also think that we should be asking questions of a lot of things, not just the vaccines. But in terms of what we're doing now, we know that there was a pause in the Johnson & Johnson vaccine. And that pause was because there was a number of people who, after getting the vaccine, Johnson & Johnson, within the 2 weeks, developed blood clots. And they develop blood clots, but not just blood clots. They also develop something called thrombocytopenia, which is low platelet count. And what made that combination dangerous is because usually the medication you use to treat a blood clot is not what you want to give for these particular types of blood clot, because your platelets, which is what helps you to stop bleeding, are low. So you actually can cause more damage by treating it in the regular way. So you really need to be, the doctors need to be on high alert, because this is something that is different. Now, when they paused the Johnson & Johnson, initially it was just women. There were 6 women. But since that pause, we know that there has been a man that's been impacted. And we know that more people have been impacted. So we don't really know what's to come. But the Johnson & Johnson vaccine is out of pause. It's back in circulation. I anticipate it'll be back in Alameda County probably next week, ready for distribution. And it's going to be distributed with another warning. Basically, that gives you the warning about the blood clots, so that if you get the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and you start to develop symptoms like difficulty breathing, abdominal pain or stomach pain, leg pain, that you then will call your doctor and contact your doctor sooner rather than later, so that if there is some development of a blood clot, you will have been seen by your doctor and will hopefully get the treatment that you need very quickly, and not have it cause significant damage. So the question that I've been getting is, well, should we be taking the Johnson & Johnson vaccine? And that's a tough question. For me, I think I honestly would like to see a little bit more information about the vaccine, about what's causing these blood clots, to see if there's anything in common between those people who got the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and then developed the blood clot. Is there any correlation between what medications they may have been on, any other risk factors in common with all of these people who have had the blood clot? That would make me personally more comfortable with the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, having that information. But each person is going to have to make that decision for themselves. We've been saying this from the beginning in terms of all the vaccines. You want to make sure that you have a conversation with your doctor, with your health profile, the medications you're taking, any chronic diseases that you may have. You want to have those conversations with your doctor prior to having any of the vaccines. Pfizer and Moderna vaccines remain on the market. They remain viable options in Alameda County. You can get those vaccines at the larger pods as well as some of the smaller community pods that are in our community. So there is enough vaccine. What I don't want to happen because of the pause from Johnson & Johnson is for you all to then say, those of you who are not already vaccinated, to then say, forget it, I don't want to get a vaccine at all. That's the wrong reaction. That is the wrong reaction. What you want to do, again, safety profile with your doctor, but you really want to think about the millions and millions of people who have taken these vaccines safely. And determine if those are pretty good odds that if millions and millions of people have taken this vaccine, I think we're about 42% of the country has taken vaccines. That's millions and millions of people who have had this vaccine with very little side effects, right? Minus the soreness in your arm, minus a little soreness in the touch, minus some fatigue, some of the common side effects that we knew were going to happen. We have not seen very many dangerous side effects. So while there's a pause on the one vaccine, I don't want you to put the pause on all vaccines, okay? So just think it through, ask your questions. I think it's super wise. I'm going to talk about this tomorrow a little bit more when I join Congresswoman Barbara Lee on our Facebook Live tomorrow, which is at 5:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on Facebook Live. We're going to talk a little bit about vaccine hesitancy. You know I've never liked that word, that term, vaccine hesitancy. I call it wisdom. We're going to go into that a little bit more tomorrow. So tune in tomorrow and you can get my whole spiel about why I don't want it to be called vaccine hesitancy, but calling it wisdom. Wisdom comes with experience. So let me just stop there and take a pause again that says if you have any questions, particularly if you're on my YouTube channel, go ahead and leave it in the comment section and we will try to answer your questions. Okay, so we talked about the pause of Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson is coming back. We still have Pfizer. We still have Moderna. It's important for you to get vaccinated. Now, what does it mean to be fully vaccinated? Okay. Lots of people think as soon as I get that second shot, if I've done Pfizer and Moderna, I'm ready. I can go out, I can hang out, I can do whatever I want to do. Well, that's not true. To be fully vaccinated means that you are at least 2 weeks out after your final vaccine. So, you take one vaccine, first dose, 3 weeks later, if you're doing Pfizer, you take the second dose. 4 weeks later, if you're Moderna, you take that second dose. And then 2 weeks after that, are you considered to be fully vaccinated? So 2 weeks after taking a vaccine, you're fully vaccinated, okay? What does that mean in terms of whether or not you can wear a mask or you can take your mask off? What are those things? The CDC says, hey, if I'm vaccinated and I'm in a room with someone else who's fully vaccinated, that means we've taken our vaccine and it's been a full 2 weeks, that we can take off our masks because we're fully vaccinated. If I'm fully vaccinated and I'm sitting down in a room with someone who is not vaccinated, for the protection of the person who's not vaccinated, I should continue to wear a mask even though I'm fully vaccinated. And that's because you want to protect that person who's not vaccinated from the possibility that even though you're vaccinated and not sick, that you may still possibly carry the virus that could then infect the person who is not fully vaccinated. Excuse me. So we do want to continue to wear our masks. Now, I know you've probably been watching the news and knowing that Pfizer is on the verge of releasing their vaccine for those 12 and up. And lots of people are concerned about giving this vaccine to their younger kids. Physiologically, not a lot of difference between a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old. Which is why the dose of the actual vaccine is the same, because there's not a whole lot of difference between the two. It wasn't a very big study, though, with the adolescents. There were about 2,200 adolescents totally that were enrolled in this study. Half had what's called the placebo, which means they didn't have the vaccine, and the other half had the vaccine. No major differences in the side effect profile from the ones who were 16 and up. So it seems as if the 12 to 15-year-olds can safely be vaccinated with the same dose as the 16 and up. I have not quite yet seen everything that I want to see on these studies, so I'm going to reserve a recommendation until after I'm able to review everything that I want, all of the data, ask all my questions to the Pfizer folks about the vaccine. But I do want to let you know that it's on the horizon, that in about 2 weeks or so, we'll probably have the vaccine approval for ages 12 to 15. And once that approval happens, because we already have the vaccine in our circulation and because it's the exact same dose, then it should be pretty soon afterwards that kids 12 to 15 will be able to be vaccinated. So that's coming very soon and probably right down the road. All right, I'm going to see if there's any questions in the chat. Trin, do you see Trin is my assistant tonight? Any questions in the chat? What is the question?
For those who are hesitant regarding taking the vaccine due to the adverse reaction, can you share what one should do and who to talk to if he or she does have an adverse reaction?
Okay, so the question is, if you know somebody who doesn't want to take the vaccine because they're worried about the adverse reactions, and then they get the adverse reactions, is that it? Or what do you tell them about the adverse reactions? So I'm going to answer both questions because I'm not quite sure which way you want me to answer. So the first question is, somebody doesn't want to take the vaccine because they're worried about the side effects. What should you tell them? All right. Well, the first thing you should tell them is that everybody is different. So I cannot assure you of what side effects you're going to have. But we can look at, after, again, millions and millions of doses, we can look at side effects that are most common. And the side effects that are most common for both the Pfizer vaccine and the Moderna vaccine, it tends to be a little bit of pain where you got your shot, some soreness in there because it's an intramuscular shot. So that means that the needle has to go into your muscle. So it's pretty deep, right, to get to your muscle. And then to actually put the vaccine into your muscle, it's a little painful. I'm not going to lie. It hurt a little bit going in. And then for a day or two, you might have some soreness because it's kind of like somebody punching your muscle, right? You're going to feel a little bruising, but that will go away with time. Some of the other common side effects are feeling tired or fatigued, having a little bit of a dull headache, not like a pounding headache, but kind of one of those dull headaches. Some fever has been kind of a side effect, but not as common. And so those are the more common side effects. Tiredness, pain at the site, headache. Those are the more common side effects. There are other side effects, though, that people might have. So basically what I would tell someone is to say, these are the common side effects, but I can't guarantee that you're going to get the common side effects or what you're going to get. But there's millions of people who have taken this vaccine and have done very well with the vaccine. All right. Gerald, I hope that answered your question. Is there another one, Trin?
Can you touch on why some people may contract the virus after vaccination?
Ooh, who asked that question?
Elizabeth Adams.
Elizabeth Adams. You're trying to ask these tough questions tonight. How do we explain people who got coronavirus after the vaccine? Is that the question? Yes. Thank you. So that's an interesting question. There's a couple of possibilities. One is that what we know about the vaccine is that it protects at a 90 to 95% level from getting severe disease. That means from getting disease that will prevent you, that makes you hospitalized or causes you to be very, very sick. And nearly 100% effective against preventing death. Okay? It does not, however, say that it is going to prevent you from getting the disease, right? And it doesn't say that it protects you from getting the disease and having mild symptoms. Okay? Remember, when the vaccines were created, the goal of the vaccine that they told these companies, like people were dying left and right, remember? And so they said to the scientists, create a vaccine that is going to stop people from dying. It was their number one focus and goal. We're going to create a vaccine that stops people from dying. So they went for the top, the gusto. But that leaves some room for people to still contract the virus and get a mild case of it. That's not what it's protecting you against. It's protecting you against getting very sick and getting in the hospital and dying. So there are going to be some people who come into contact with the virus and then have a very mild form of the disease. And that's because the way that they developed the vaccine was to prevent severe disease and death, but not necessarily mild disease. So I hope that answers your question, Liz. Any other questions? Let's see.
Yes.
Okay.
If is the vaccination going any younger than that?
Yes. The goal of the vaccine is to go all the way down to infants. So now that Pfizer has completed its trials of 12 to 15-year-olds, then the next phase of the trial will likely be 5 to 11-year-olds. And then they will see if there is any difference in terms of the dosing and side effects that come with that younger age group. Once they do that, then they're probably going to start on the babies. And by then, they'll have lots and lots of data from the 16 and over, and the 12 to 15, and the 5 to 11. So by the time they get to infants, they'll have millions of people who have taken the vaccine in multiple age groups, and will be able to say, yes, we believe that this vaccine is safe. So yes, they're going to go younger until we can go all the way down to babies. All right. Any other questions? These are good questions you guys have tonight.
There are no more so far.
All right. So, Donnell, do we have slide 17 up? Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So we can close with that one. All right. So, again, lots of information, lots of things happening. Here is the bottom line of what I want you to understand about coronavirus. We're almost at a place where we're starting to turn the corner, and instead of our rates going up, our rates going down. And we want those rates to stay going down. We have multiple ways to help prevent the spread. Continuing to wear your mask. It's so important. Just because other people are vaccinated, but if you're not vaccinated, you're not protected. So don't take your mask off. Continue to mask. Continue to social distance as much as possible. Continue to do good hand washing. And when you have the opportunity, get vaccinated. Ask the questions that you need to ask about the vaccines to make you comfortable in getting vaccinated. But do consider it. Keep an open mind when you ask those questions about the vaccine. Keep an open mind and let us talk to you about it, answer all your questions, and then make a decision. Make sure you're listening to the right people. So many things I'm seeing online, YouTube things and Facebook groups, and all these people are answering questions about coronavirus, but make sure, and the vaccines, make sure they're reputable. Make sure they know what they're talking about, and they're not just out there spewing conspiracy theories and untruths about the vaccines. So be careful who you listen to. Hopefully, you consider me one of your trusted sources, and you will come and continue to tune in to what I'm talking about, what I'm saying about the vaccines and coronavirus. There's more to come. All right. No more questions in the chat. I want to thank you for watching and tuning in to another episode of Talking with Dr. Donna. Remember, our goal is to build generational health, emotional, mental health, spiritual health, mental health, and environmental health. If we pay attention to all of those things, we are going to end premature deaths in our community. Thanks again for watching. Happy Mother's Day out there to all of you mothers out there. And hopefully I have a picture up of my mommy, Donna Mae Scott White. I love you, Mom. Thank you for being an awesome mommy. Until I see you again, remember you have an appointment with your doctor every Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Thanks for tuning in. If you have a question for Dr. Donna, please do leave it on my page, and I will be happy to answer the question for you.